Dark Brandon is openly mocking Republicans who are now trying to insinuate themselves into the economic success of a Democratic agenda that they staunchly opposed. Intrigued? Then click that like and subscribe and enjoy the video. As we often discuss, one of the many advantages that Republicans enjoy in this political climate is the fact that they're shameless. They're hypocrites of the highest, most profound order. They don't worry about integrity or consistency. They can say one thing on Monday, the exact opposite on Tuesday, and then say a random third thing that contradicts the first two things on Thursday. That's just how they operate, and their constituency rewards them for it. They celebrate it. They love it. And the media very often doesn't call them out for it. And unfortunately, so often, Democrats don't do it either. But it seems like recently, President Biden and the Democrats are exuding that Dark Brandon energy, which I wish they would constantly manifest at all times. What am I talking about? Well, as I mentioned, President Biden is on a messaging tour about Bidenomics because he's stepping up his game in terms of being more aggressive about bragging about his administration's economic accomplishments. 13 million jobs created on his watch, the fastest economic recovery in the midst of a pandemic compared to any advanced economy on earth, the resurgence of domestic manufacturing thanks to the CHIPS Act, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. He's being much more aggressive about bragging about that. And he should, because that's what's going to get voters to turn out and reward him with a second term in office. But we have Republicans who staunchly opposed the vast majority of President Biden's agenda for the past 2.5 years, starting with, for example, Senator from Texas, John Cornyn. So he's bragging about a $3.3 billion in federal funding to boost broadband expansion in Texas. He's touting it, okay? The federal government is increasing its funds to expand access to broadband internet in Texas. That's great. But he didn't vote for it. He opposed the bill. Senator Tommy Tuberville of Alabama did the same thing. Broadband is vital to the success of our rural communities and for our entire economy. Great to see Alabama receive crucial funds to boost ongoing broadband efforts, okay? The problem is, Tuberville, like Cornyn, opposed the bill that provided the funds to do it. So President Biden, manifesting that Dark Brandon energy, called him out on Twitter, gently but directly. See you at the groundbreaking, okay? Basically making it aware, hey, Tommy, you're taking credit for this, you're hyping this up, but you opposed this development in the first place just to stick it to me, a Democrat. So I'm going to gently remind you of that, but publicly do it as well. And people are celebrating President Biden gently throwing shade at this Republican senator. As a matter of fact, he should have been more direct in doing it. And going back to John Cornyn of Texas, President Biden didn't address him directly, but everybody else did on Twitter. Didn't you vote against this bill? Didn't you oppose this funding? Didn't you? Now, I want to play a clip here of a speech that President Biden gave today, giving remarks about the economy, in which he already did it on Twitter, but now he publicly and more directly and more bluntly called out Senator Tuberville in the speech. So let's play the clip and hear what the president has to say.
That's what the bipartisan infrastructure law does. It will be for our kids and grandkids, only bigger. Just last week, we announced our plan to bring affordable high-speed internet to end the decade of unaffordable and inaccessible internet to every home in America, every small business in America. And to no one's surprise, it's bringing along some converts. People strenuously opposed, voting against it when we had this going on. This was going to bankrupt America. Well, there's a guy named Tuberville, senator from Alabama, who announced that he strongly opposed the legislation. Now he's hailing its passage. Here's what he said, quote, "It's great to see Alabama receive critical funds to boost ongoing broadband efforts." We're replacing every single lead pipe in this.
So know what the president does. He makes a point to mock Tuberville gently, directly, publicly, in speech, right? Like both in text and in speech. But he doesn't belabor the point. This is further proof that President Biden is fundamentally a kind, merciful man, a compassionate man. He gently makes fun of him, gently calls him out. But if it had been Donald Trump would have spent minutes just relentlessly and ruthlessly grinding his political opponent into the dirt. And actually, quite frankly, I wish President Biden manifested more of that energy. He should make more of a point to be even harsher in terms of his rebukes, because Republicans do this all the time. This is nothing new. President Biden actually called them out previously back in 2022 when it came to the bipartisan infrastructure law. And this was an article from last year. Lawmakers like Representative Steve Scalise, Clay Higgins, Kay Granger, Ashley Hinson, Michael Steele, and Andy Harris have all touted parts of the $14 billion recently allocated dollars from the law, the bipartisan infrastructure law, to the Army Corps of Engineers to make way to their districts. So this is something that goes on and on and on with Republicans. They very often take credit for things that not only they didn't support, but they actively opposed. Democrats need to call them out for it. Democrats are a responsible governing party. We like to revitalize not just blue cities, blue counties, and blue states, but also conservative areas as well. Conservatives do better when Democrats are in power, and Democrats need to be much more aggressive in their messaging. Hey, look, this Alabama, Texas, you red states, you conservative states, you are benefiting from legislation that only passed thanks to Democrats and that the vast majority of the Republican Party opposed. So maybe you should vote for us next time, because if Republicans have it their way, they're just going to cut taxes for the rich and screw you all over. So it is a fact. Red states, conservative constituents all do better economically when Democrats are in power. And President Biden and the Democratic Party needs to be infinitely more aggressive in reminding people of that fact. This is a solid step in the right direction. I look forward to more of it as the election cycle continues.